Donnie and Walter were having a disagreement about who should be captain of the bowling team. Over the last 10 games, Donnie won a few of them, but overall, Walter is really the better bowler. But high scores isn't everything in bowling league, so there's something to be said for having a score above average, or an exceptional score. So Walter and Donnie decided to bowl 150 games to determine what each one's average is. And then they'll play one final game to see who should be the bowling team captain. After 150 total games, it was clear that Walter was achieving the higher scores. Walter's average was about 181. Donnie's average was about 149. And in that deciding game, Walter rolled a 199, and Donnie rolled a 164. So which one has earned the right to be the bowling team captain? Walter would say that his score is 18 pins above average, and Donnie's is only 15 points above his average. So Walter should be the bowling team captain. And Donnie replied that his 15 points above average, compared to the average 149, is about 10%. And Walter's 18 points above his average 181 is also about 10%. It's actually a tiny bit less than 10%, but Donnie knows not to mess around with Walter with such technicalities. Instead, he made the bold argument that Walter's score of 199 was just luck, lots of the usual ups and downs that his game is used to seeing, so this was just another instance where he got lucky with a high score, but it's not that unexpected. He's just an up and down player. But Donnie's 164 comes from a history of not a lot of ups and downs. So maybe that 15 points above average is a bit more significant because he's usually a very constant player with not as many ups and downs. Of course, Walter was enraged by Donnie questioning his skill, but he was intrigued by this measurement of how unexpected is this considering his usual ups and downs. A quantity that can measure how much away from average would be expected if you know that you have lots of ups and downs in your data. That quantity is called the standard deviation. Basically, it looks at how frequently and how far away from average have you been in the past to decide how expected is it for you to be above or below average in the future. And maybe Walter just got lucky that he was on one of his high points, but it wasn't really that exceptional of a game given his history. Walter's standard deviation, calculated from all of his past bowling scores, was about 16. Donnie's bowling scores don't stray from the average as much as Walter's do, so he has a lower standard deviation. It's about 9.6. And if we look at Walter's 18 points above average compared to his standard deviation of 16, we see that Walter's game really was above average. It was more than one standard deviation above average, 1.125 standard deviations. But Donnie's 15 points above average compared to his standard deviation of 9.6 equals 1.5625, a greater number of standard deviations than Walter's increase. So the standard deviation is telling us about how many points above or below average you could still think is expected based on your history of ups and downs. Walter's standard deviation was 16, meaning that it's kind of expected for his score to be somewhere up to 16 points above average or 16 points below average. And scores in this range might not be terribly unexpected. Now in this case, Walter did get a little bit above one standard deviation. But Donnie's scores were a bit more constant than Walter's. His standard deviation of 9.6 gives us this range of about 139 to 159. So his score of 164 was farther outside of his range of what might be expected scores based on his history of smaller ups and downs.